This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
We are honored to have back our state attorney at the law offices of Julie A. Schejbal. She joins us here live today to talk more, not just about estate law, but about some other things too. Again, whether it's estate planning, do you need a will, a trust, all these documents, very important. Some people don't think about this till it's a little too late. So she's here guiding us and, of course, always has our best interest in mind. Today, we're going to go along the lines of some non-traditional estate planning. But before we do so, please introduce yourself to everyone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm an estate planning attorney. I'm located in Maryland, and my law firm offers full service estate planning. So we do wills, trust, powers of attorney, medical directives. We can do high-end charitable planning. We do a lot of charitable planning. We do elder law, which is like guardianships and Medicaid. And we also do probate, which is the administration after somebody dies. So we're sort of a full service estate planning / elder law firm.
You sure are. Wonderful. Well, we're excited to have you here. Do you hail from?
I grew up just outside of Washington, D.C. So
Oh, okay.
a person from Maryland or whatever. So, I would say I'm a native Washingtonian.
Beautiful. All right. So we're going to get to a little bit of conversation today about some non-traditional estate planning. So before we do that, for those that may have missed the other show, tell us what regular estate planning is and, the traditional way first.
So you sort of, what I think of traditional estate planning is sort of, your traditional married couple, married, one marriage, married forever, kids together, no kids from a prior relationship or prior marriage, and their grandchildren all, together,
Okay.
like all, no stepchildren,
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. So it's all one, traditional family, sort of, in the old days, you'd say like Leave It to Beaver or something like that. So it's sort of that traditional family.
Got it. Perfect. So now we're going to talk a little bit along the lines of what's non-traditional then.
So non-traditional is sort of like, go back to the TV theme, kind of like Modern Family. You
Mm-hmm.
had the traditional family, then you had the blended families, and you had the same-sex couple. And so it's sort of all that. It's blended families, second marriages with children from your marriage, my marriage, our marriage together, maybe. So there's different DNA strands, I guess. Same-sex marriage, unmarried partners,
Mm-hmm.
same sex or non-same sex, single individuals. So it's all kind of outside of that traditional family role or idea.
Beautiful. Thank you for explaining and clarifying that. So let's get to some of the things that are happening with non-traditional estate planning, and then obviously maybe a little bit some of the challenges, right? I'm sure there's quite a few.
So the biggest thing is you start up to recognize the challenges. So number one challenge would be family tensions. You have you painted the evil stepmother or stepfather,
Yeah.
or, my my dad's new wife or my mom's new husband's going to take all of my money or her money or his money or whatever. So they're looking at, there's always that family tension. And I
Oh,
would,
yeah.
when I've had blended families come in, I think the greater part of the tension stems from, if people got married, second marriage early, and they kind of raised the kids together, there's less tension because there may be
Mm-hmm.
family, but it's very high when it's, you know, all the kids are grown and been out of the house, and none of them have a relationship with either the new step parent
Yep.
or husband or wife or the other kids that are brought into this. So the other thing that happens is you may have different testamentary intent. You're looking at,
Yeah.
like, I have my kids, I want my kids to benefit from my money,
Yeah.
not your family. It's all my family, or, and vice versa. And again, that also is heightened when you're talking about people who were maybe on their second marriage later in life.
Yeah.
And, it's a tension because you want to protect your kids,
Of course.
but you also may say, hey, look, I love my husband or wife, and I want to protect them too. So I don't want to shut them out when I die, but I want to also ensure that my children will benefit from my money at the end of the day. When my wife or husband dies, I want to make sure it goes where I want it to go, not where he or she wants it to go. Because if we did a traditional sweetheart will, Jill, and we said,
Yeah.
Everything to my husband, everything to my wife.
Yeah.
First spouse dies, it goes over to the second spouse. Then it's controlled by his or her documents.
Yeah.
So you're either going to be there's a big leap of faith slash trust that your surviving spouse will provide for your children,
Okay.
and also, that they are not secretly saying, well, I've always thought these kids were ungrateful wretches, and cut them out, or there won't be any tension after death, or they won't be manipulated by their children. So
Got it.
there's always that, think down the road and think the worst possible case, and then you work back from it, kind of.
Got it.
And the other thing you can have sometimes is this could happen in any situation, but it's particularly acute, I think, in a blended family, is maybe there's differences in wealth. Wife comes into marriage, she has more money, maybe the husband does, maybe they have money from their own family. And so that's created their wealth. And they're also looking at, hey, this is my traditional wealth. I want to protect that for the people, my children who carry my DNA or whatever. So
Got it.
you're always looking at, and then the tension is protect the kids, but protect, benefit or protect your spouse or significant other as well.
Well, can you talk about some examples of what you've seen happen and why we're discussing all this? Because what happens a lot of times when it comes to this? I'm sure there's a lot of chaos, a lot of fighting, and this is a great way to prevent it. But could you share some examples of that?
Sure. So, I mean, you have I've seen it where they've said, I've left everything, the spouse, the
Yeah.
first that I left everything to new spouse, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
are looking at this and they're saying, well,
Mm.
wait,
Yeah.
she's not going to leave me money. And then the surviving spouse has cut out his or her children. I mean, this is her first that I's kids. And it's always there's big tension. There's also sometimes it's, even if the surviving spouse would be trustworthy and say, I'm not cutting out my husband or wife's kids, the husband or wife's kids is very distrustful and they start stirring the pot. So you
Yeah.
have both levels. It's my money, and also it gets heightened then if it was money that was trickled down. It came from my grandparents. It came from, the first parent to die, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got one now where the the parents were divorced. Dad's treating one of his kids, differently than the other children. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
deserved, by the way. I've met the other kids, and sometimes you're like, well, I understand why dad didn't do anything for you. And now the mom, the ex-wife is trying to meddle and creating a lot of outside tension. So and it's creating, a split between the children. So sometimes you have, you can't discount outside tension, whether it's coming from, the ex-spouse or, in-laws or whatever. So there's always that part of the mix too.
Sure. All right. What else do we have on tap for today? Again, we are here talking about non-traditional estate planning, talking about some challenges, how we can overcome them. We're going to talk a little bit about same-sex couples too, or unmarried partners. Do they face similar challenges too?
Well, so same-sex couples, I think, face a lot of the similar challenges in that they may not have children together, right?
Okay.
So they may have I've had some same-sex couples, one spouse or one partner has had children from a prior relationship, the other one may not, and so you have this idea of, well, I want to, benefit my partner or my spouse, but I also want to make sure that money and property goes to
Yeah.
my kids at the end of the day. And so it's also that level of, again, you do this will, you leave everything to your partner. He or she doesn't have the same feelings about your kids. Your children can get cut out. So it's
Yeah.
always looking at that protection. So one of the ways that you can protect your kids and still benefit your spouse is, instead of saying, when I die, I leave all of my wealth outright to my spouse, you
Okay.
can say, I'm going to leave all of my wealth in a trust for the spouse.
Ah. And what does that specifically mean? Because that does get confusing to some people what that means.
So, sorry, it's a testamentary trust, which simply means it's set up after you die. So we set up the terms and
Oh,
conditions.
hold on. I don't hear you as well. Just got a little muffled. Hold on.
We're going to set up
There
a
you go.
testamentary trust, which
All right.
simply means it's set up after you die.
Got
So
it.
we set the terms and conditions up in your document. but there's no, uh, admin work or anything else. It's just a piece of paper until you pass away. And then what it says is, instead of saying I leave everything outright to my spouse, it
Yes.
says if my spouse is alive, I want you to take all of my money and pay it into this trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then traditionally it's run through for the surviving spouse's benefits. So they might get all of the income. So if you had $2 million in there, it earned 5% to make math easy for me. He or she would get $100,000 a year, do whatever they want with it,
Got
spend it, save it, give it to their kids, go to Wimbledon to watch tennis, throw it in dig a hole in the backyard and keep it, whatever they want to do. And then they can also, if you say, well, that doesn't sound like enough money, you can also allow them to dip into the principal, that 2 million or whatever it is, so that he or she can, make sure that they have their medical expenses are taken care of, or their, standard of living, so that if the house needs a roof, or how a roof can be put on the house, that type of thing. But the advantage of this trust is, so it's benefited your spouse, he or she dies, and then what you also have in the trust is it triggers where the money's going to go, whatever's left, where it's going to go when he
Yeah.
or she dies. And this trust is irrevocable, and it's irrevocable. You can't change it because the only person who could have amended it or changed it is dead.
Hmm.
So you have this idea of you can benefit your spouse, but he or she can't say, well, wait, I always hated my spouse's kids. They're ungrateful, or I want to leave it to my favorite charity, or whatever. They are stuck with the money going to the kids. So it protects your children by doing this. So
Got
it
it.
kind of allows you to have your cake and eat it too, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I like that idea. All right, thank you so much. What else do you want to discuss here? Sorry, we're
So,
jumping the gun. Keep going.
no, that's good. So, the other thing about that is that, so if we so another challenge you can have sometimes is, and this could also, I guess, be with a traditional family, is differences in wealth, but particularly it's acute with a blended family.
Mm-hmm.
I have more money, worked harder, or was more successful, or got money from my parents. And maybe they do say, well, we don't, we really want to treat the kids, the blended family, somewhat equally, but I want to acknowledge that I brought more to the table. And in that case, you can address it in the plan by saying, instead of leaving everything equally to your kids and the second spouse's kids, maybe you say, well, I have 60% of this wealth. I'm going to
Yeah,
leave 60% to my kids, 40% to his kids or her kids. So you can, that you can play around with a little bit too.
got it. And also, you've been in business for how long? Just a little bit of your background for those that may not know you yet.
So I've been in business for, I think it's about 30 years now. So in private practice for about 30. I
Mm-hmm.
did 5 years with the federal government when I got out of school with the IRS, where I used to
Okay.
steal money from rich widows and orphans. So, and but so about 35 years of doing various parts of this type of practice.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I mean,
Sure.
clearly you have great recommendations, great testimonials. We talked about that. And she also helped with the regular traditional stuff. If you are tuning in, the estate planning, the will, regular trust, and all that stuff too. So again, she's based out of Dunkirk, Maryland. And we're excited that she's here with us. And she's, by the way, I got to address what's happening behind you. What's up with tennis? Do you love tennis?
I do love tennis. I do love tennis.
Yay.
I'm an avid player, and I actually had the opportunity to go to Wimbledon one year, so that's the
Ah.
background for this. So that was kind of a bucket list for me, you know.
Beautiful. Love it, love it, love it. All right. So for today, what else did you want to talk about? Single
Well,
individuals, different
so a couple
challenges
other
with same
things
sex, and
same-sex care couples or
yes.
unmarried couples or single individuals. One of the things is there's a lot of parallels we talked about with the blended family, but for particularly unmarried couples and same-sex couples, you may face some lifetime challenges as you're not
Mm-hmm.
attuned to. So one of which would be your significant other has a medical event
Yeah.
and can no longer make medical decisions for him or herself, and it may be temporary, like a coma or something. Well, if you don't have a medical directive or a healthcare power of attorney in place, you may be shut out of making decisions for your loved one. Then it may, under state law, or at least in Maryland, it's going to fall to the next of kin. So it might be your parents, it might be your siblings. So the partner may be shut out of these decisions. And this is particularly acute, if there's tension among the between the family members and the partner, the family members are going to get in there and make the decision. So but if you have a healthcare power of attorney, you're nominating your significant other, you're circumnavigating that. You're saying, this is who I want to make my medical decisions, or the other side of the coin would be your financial decisions if you can't do so. So those are, topics that no one thinks about, but can be particularly acute if you're not paying attention to it. And I mean, some of this for same-sex couples may be minimized or
Yeah.
mitigated by, uh, the state of gay marriage, but I think it's something to keep an eye on because, there could be legislation in your state later on that could undercut this. So you want to, be particularly attuned to that. And, these documents provide the safeguard, and they're not particularly difficult to do or time consuming. So,
Got it.
you know, and then I think for single individuals, the challenges they raise are sort of, what are you going to do with your money when you die?
Yeah.
They, if you don't have a will, you're up to state law. And I might say,
Mm-hmm.
children, it's going to go to your siblings or nieces or nephews. You don't have any of those. You're going to start
Yeah.
going to your cousins. All this may be fine, but you might say, well, look, I'm not particularly fond of any of these people. I would like it to go somewhere else. So this is your opportunity to make your own decision. Um, and then it's going to go again. No
Mm-hmm.
siblings or nieces and nephews are starting going out the family tree.
Oh, yeah.
And every state has a fallback. In Maryland, it goes to the Board of Education if you don't have anybody, which is, I think I've said before, my mother was a public school teacher, so that's fine with me. But for other people, they may not find that very attractive possibility. The other thing is, again, your affairs while you're alive. If you don't have anybody, you're leaving it up to, the state, and the state's
Yeah.
going to appoint. So you're going to have a random stranger making decisions for you, which I think if you were, I don't know about you, but I don't want that to happen.
No. No, I got it. And how many times do you see this though happening? And it's too late, right? When someone
Yeah,
passes.
exactly. It's too late. They've, and then and you've seen, and then you have regret. Somebody comes in and says, well, I knew, Jill was my neighbor. I know if she had a
Mm-hmm.
will, she was very involved with the SPCA or,
Ah,
you cancer organization, whatever. She would have loved it to go there. And
yeah.
if she doesn't have a will, it's going to her cousins or nieces and
Oh,
nephews.
gosh.
You see that, and it doesn't happen, fortunately, a lot, but when it does happen, they're the classic examples. So they, resonate more.
Got it. All right. Thank you for that. And what else for today do you want to share? We still got plenty of time here.
Well, I think that's probably about it, but I did want to just, reiterate that the changes are, I mean, there are challenges and you want to be aware of them.
Yeah.
And, there's something that people don't necessarily think about when they, enter into a relationship with a blended family or whatever. And, you can do some stuff to minimize the tension. You don't have to be the cautionary tale, I suppose.
Yeah. Right? I mean, ah, thank goodness that there's people out there who still don't know about this. And you taught me a lot about it too, because being that I'm 47, I don't have a will yet. I have two young kids, 8 and 10. And yeah, what if I die? What's going to happen? Right? I mean, my kids are minors. What happens in a situation like that?
What would happen is, which state do you live in? You
I'm
live
in
in,
New York.
okay, so New York law would control, and one of the things they would probably say is that any money you're leaving to your children is under guardianship, and it's court controlled, at least
Yeah.
in Maryland, I assume same in New York. And what happens with that, no matter how much money you leave your kids, the worst part is at 18, it's going out to your kids, whether
Yeah.
they, there's a lot of money, not very much money, whether they would be sophisticated enough to handle it or smart enough or not. The law says you're an adult, you're going to get the money. And so you have, those are real cautionary tales because I've seen that happen. And I've seen children who get a substantial amount of money, particularly for an 18
Yeah.
year old. And, somehow, shockingly, the money's not around when they're 19.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone out, spent all the money, and remember, your 18-year-old kids have 18-year-old friends. So
Of course.
pension for parties is, high or whatever. And that, again, there's nothing around for them when they get to be 19 or 20.
Oh,
So that's kind of the flip of that, the bad part of that, and then you also, from just who's raising your kids, you're leaving that up to a state determination. And, you may have siblings or friends or somebody you say, well, if somebody had to raise my kids, they would be the best person from a,
yeah.
personality or ethics or morals or whatever goes into that temperament. And you're leaving it up to the state of New York to decide who that's going to be.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for giving us, information on this and reminding us of the importance of this. And, at any age, you should get started, right? When,
exactly. Yeah.
and I just feel like people should talk about this more. They don't. Why? Why? Are we scared about death? We don't think about it?
I think they're scared about, let's
Denial?
start with, they're scared about death.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I can say, I've done this a lot. I don't think I've had any client die
Yeah.
um, early because they did their will with me. I think most of my clients have made their expected life expectancy, if not longer. Two, I think, they they feel like it's maybe super expensive. They don't want to make that decision. They want to pull the trigger from a finance standpoint, which is certainly something to consider. And I think the third one is, I tell this to clients all the time, you really don't know if I did a good job, because
Yeah.
the real test of these documents are when you die, right? So you're not going to be, or lose capacity. So you're not around to evaluate it. So there isn't um, necessarily this direct reward or outcome that you can weigh, where, with, like, go to somebody, do your taxes, you can see that right away. Oh, they did a good job with my taxes, or whatever. So there's not this direct feedback. And I think
Yeah.
that can be part of it too.
Got it. Well, again, want to commend you for doing what you do and really helping so many people. And again, whether you're same sex, you have any issues, it doesn't matter. This is for everyone, and we really should be on the
Exactly.
ball. Again, we're talking today non-traditional estate planning, and again, even traditional estate. We need to get in on this and to start. So, what would you say
Right.
to someone out there who is looking to have their questions answered?
So if they're in Maryland, they can certainly contact me, and my phone number is 410-286-8100, or they can visit my website at www.jasestatelaw.com. I offer a free initial consultation, so they have an opportunity to hear what I'm going to say, weigh the cost, and, you know, it's all, that first, consultation is free. So they have that opportunity to get their questions answered.
Beautiful.
Um, and it's just, don't be scared.
All
Make the
right.
call, and in wherever state you look, you're in, make that call and find an attorney to do this for you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much again for being here, for joining us and filling us in like this. Hopefully, we'll see you again then next week. Thanks so much.
You guys have a great afternoon.
You
Take care.
too. Bye bye.
Thank you.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.